This group of Sioux warriors ambushed and killed 80 federal soldiers, federal government soldiers, which is known as the Fetterman Massacre. And what this does is it forces the American government to respond. They killed 80 federal soldiers. So like federal government, they killed 80 federal US soldiers. And these two events kick off a start of decades of conflict between Native Americans and the federal government. No, what did I just do? There we go. The West enters a time of open conflict, known as the Indian Wars. So the Indian Wars refers to a series of conflicts between Native Americans and the US federal government. By 1870, many Native Americans had either been wiped out or forcibly moved. But Indians in the plains refused to compromise. And one of the most notable conflicts of this era is the Battle of Little Bighorn. In the Battle of Little Bighorn, two leaders of the Lakota tribe, Lakota is spelled Lakota. So two leaders of the Lakota tribe, Crazy Horse and Chief Sitting Bull, they refused to negotiate with the white soldiers who wanted to take over the Black Hills of South Dakota. So again, these two Lakota leaders refused to negotiate with white federal leaders about this area of the Black Hills, which had a lot of cultural significance. General George Custer was sent by the US government to stop this rebellion. And in turn, himself and his entire group of soldiers were killed. So again, to stop this rebellion, General George Custer was sent by the US government to end this conflict, General George Custer, and himself and his entire group of soldiers were killed. The Battle of Little Bighorn is one of the few notable successes in terms of the Indian wars on the side of Native Americans. This is one of the few times that Native Americans are able to succeed in maintaining their land. But this leads us to probably the most disheartening of the series of the Indian Wars. One way that Native Americans continued to employ and practice their culture is through the ghost dance movement. So the ghost dance movement, again, is one of the ways that Native Americans fought to practice and continue to maintain their culture. The ghost dance movement was a blend of Native traditions and Christian beliefs. The goal of this dance had two pieces. Native Americans hoped this dance would bring back the buffalo, which had been going extinct. So again, bring back the buffalo, which were a big cultural and food resource for the natives. And two, they were hoped that this dance would drive the white man off of their land. And the most significant piece about the ghost dance movement is that this was a form of unity between all Native Americans in the area. This was not regulated to just one tribe. This was something that all Native Americans in that area were practicing as a way to unite together against this impending force. However, the ghost dance movement also led to one of the most disastrous moments in Native American history with the Wounded Knee Massacre. Federal officers saw the ghost dance movement as a threat and as a sign of potential mass war. And so in South Dakota, the federal army attempted to disarm a camp of Lakota Indians in 1890. So again, in South Dakota, the federal army attempted to disarm a camp of Lakota Indians in 1890. However, as the natives were being disarmed, a shot was fired. We don't know which side fired first. And the US soldiers opened fire on the Lakota. The US soldiers killed nearly 300 Lakota Indians, mostly women and children. And this is what we know as the Wounded Knee Massacre. And put a star next to this piece, the Wounded Knee Massacre is considered the last or the end of the Indian Wars. So again, put a star next to this or highlight it if you're typing it. This is considered the last of the Indian Wars. And what these massacres tell the federal government at this time is that direct violence is clearly not working. There is an issue with this form of direct violence. So how do they suppress Native Americans without this open type of violence? Which leads us to our next topic, the quote unquote Indian problem. By the late 1860s, Americans were getting really frustrated with this never-ending conflict between Native Americans and white soldiers or settlers. And the most popular idea, aside from direct conflict to engage with Native Americans, is called assimilation. Oops, sorry. So again, assimilation is the key idea in this slide. Assimilation was put forward by a group of reformers who wanted to help Native Americans. But ultimately, this idea of assimilation is rooted in white supremacy. Assimilation is a process of forcing white traditions and white US culture onto Native Americans. Many Native Americans, as shown in this picture, were sent to training schools where they would be taught how to speak English, but also how to dress and act like their white counterparts. But while they were learning this type of white culture, they were also forced to stop performing their own. So that's the key idea of this type of assimilation, is not only are they being quote unquote educated in how to behave around white people, they are also not allowed to perform their own traditions or key aspects of their culture that might have religious or cultural significance. Just 2 more slides, you guys. I know lectures are long. Okay, now we're going to look at the relationship between Native Americans and the legal aspect of white American culture. As we know, many treaties that were signed between Native Americans and white leaders often went ignored when it suited the white counterpart. The first major law that disregards agreements between Native Americans and white settlers is the General Allotment Act. The General Allotment Act was signed in 1887. And the General Allotment Act of 1887 opens up tribal land to non-Indian settlers. So now anybody could settle on previous reservation land. And in the same year, 1887, the Dawes Act was passed. So the Dawes Act, again signed in 1887, the goal of it was to end the reservation system. So the goal is to end the reservation system and instead give small Native families plots of land instead of having communal reservation land. So again, the Dawes Act's goal is to end reservations in favor of having small individual plots of land. And leaders believed this would help in their assimilationist policies. However, what this really does is it leads to Native Americans losing 2/3 of their land by the 1930s. So again, Native Americans lose 2/3 of their land by the 1930s. Those of you guys following along on that outline, we are going to skip the next slide to the Taming the Frontier, and this is the last slide. Thank you guys for sticking with me through a very dense lecture. The most important part of the Taming the Frontier is this idea in the Turner thesis. In 1893, historian Frederick Jackson Turner So again, 1893, historian Frederick Jackson Turner claimed that the frontier had played a key role in developing the American character. And Frederick Jackson Turner believed that the Western frontier is what makes Americans unique. And the settling of this Western territory makes Americans unique. In the Turner thesis, he argues that the Western frontier makes Americans who are ready for adventure, invested in self-improvement, and committed to democracy. But now with the West closed, the Americans will have to find other places to explore and take from other people. So that is it for today's lecture. We're going to go ahead and transition to the exit ticket. If you have any questions about the content in the lecture, feel free to chat me and I will follow up with you with those clarifications. And if not, you can go ahead and open up that exit ticket. And once you submit the exit ticket and photos of your lecture notes, you will be free to go. Also, yes, if you have a paper copy of the packet, all exit tickets are going to be digital. So it's like you'll have paper copies for the classwork, but in order to streamline collection, I'm keeping all exit tickets digital if you have a hard copy. Thank you, Eddie. Thank you, Mahmoud. You may go. Thank you, Caleb. You may go. Thank you, Giovanni. You may go. Remember, class tomorrow at 8 a.m. like normal. Thank you, Shakim. You may go. Thank you, Kayla. You may go. Thanks, Jalacia. Once I get your classwork packet, you're free to go. Oh, just got it. You're good. I say between Arabia with a cat and heaven with a cute baby, like we're all about the distractions today. Thanks, Heaven. Once you submit your class notes, you're free to go. So cute. Heaven, Leah, once you guys submit your class notes, you guys are free to go. Heaven, when you get a chance. Oh, wait, I got him. You're good to go. And Skyen, let me know when you're done with your exit ticket or when you're ready and I can fill in those notes for you. Oh my gosh, Heaven, it's a party. See, Arabia, you have a cat, but also like Heaven's like, I see your cat and here are two toddlers.
She makes up for the two toddlers besides the one that's upstairs.
She knew you were talking smack, so that's why she left.